I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these posts, but here I am. I found out my wife was cheating because of a garage door that wouldn't close. For context, I'm 41. We've been married 12 years. 2 kids, mortgage, shared calendars. The whole suburban life package. Up until a few months ago, I would have told you we were solid. Not perfect, but stable. We didn't fight much. We were busy, tired, normal. Looking back, the first signs were small. She started guarding her phone like it contained state secrets. If I walked into the room, it flipped face down. If I asked who she was texting, I'd get a sharp, "Why are you interrogating me?" She became prickly, defensive over nothing. If I forgot to take the trash out, it turned into a speech about how I never show up. At the same time, she got distant. Less eye contact, less casual touch. Conversations felt like business meetings. I kept telling myself it was stress. She'd recently started a new job and talked constantly about how underappreciated she'd been before. I tried to be supportive. I really did. Then there was the sudden glow-up. New clothes, new perfume. Gym 5 days a week. I remember joking, "Who are you trying to impress?" She didn't laugh. She just said, "Maybe I'm finally trying to impress myself." That should have been my wake-up call. The night everything shifted, she told me she had to stay late for a team project. It was almost routine by then. I was in the garage around 10 p.m. trying to fix the door because it kept bouncing back open. I hit the button again, and instead of closing, it lifted halfway and stopped. That's when I saw headlights. She wasn't supposed to be home yet. I stood there, confused, as her car idled in the driveway. A second car was behind her, a sedan I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped in a way I can't fully explain, like my body knew before my brain did. She got out of her car first. Then he got out of his. She laughed. Not a polite laugh. A soft, intimate one I hadn't heard directed at me in a long time. When she saw me standing there in the half-open garage, her entire expression changed. It was like watching a mask snap into place. "Oh," she said sharply. "Why's the garage open?" Not, "Why are you up?" Not, "This isn't what it looks like." Just irritation. And in that moment, I knew something in my marriage had been rotting for a long time. I'll stop here because the confrontation deserves its own post. But I can tell you this, the man I was before that garage door jammed isn't the man writing this now. So yeah, I was standing there in the half-open garage, holding the remote like an idiot, staring at my wife and some guy I'd never seen before. He froze when he saw me. She didn't. She straightened her shoulders and actually looked annoyed. "This is Brad," she said quickly. "He's on my team. We were working late." At 10 p.m. in our driveway, with laughter that didn't sound like spreadsheets. Brad gave me this awkward half-wave. "Hey man, sorry, we just wrapped up a client thing." I remember how calm I felt. Not explosive, not yelling, just cold. "Then why didn't you park at the office?" I asked her. She crossed her arms. "Because I needed to grab something from home before we head back." Head back. At 10 p.m., that's when I noticed something else. She wasn't dressed like someone who had been sitting in an office all night. Different top than when she left. Hair down, lipstick fresh. "Head back," I repeated. "Or head somewhere else." Her expression hardened. "You don't get to interrogate me in my own driveway." Own driveway? Brad shifted uncomfortably and muttered something about giving us space. He left. Fast. Didn't look back. The second his car disappeared, she rounded on me. "What is your problem lately?" she snapped. "You've been paranoid for weeks." Paranoid. I laughed, but it didn't feel like me laughing. "You show up late with another man and I'm paranoid?" "It's called having a career," she shot back. "You wouldn't understand." That one hit. I've supported her career since day one, moved cities for it, took extra shifts when she went back to school. But suddenly, I was the small-minded husband holding her back. "You've been different," I said, my voice shaking now. "You hide your phone. You don't talk to me. You act like I'm a roommate." "Oh my God," she said, rolling her eyes. You are so dramatic. Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of coasting through life, I wouldn't need intellectual stimulation from someone who actually listens. That sentence cracked something open in me. I wouldn't need... She didn't say she was cheating. She didn't have to. I stepped closer. Are you sleeping with him? She didn't answer right away. That silence felt louder than any confession. Then she said, You really want to do this right now? Yes, I said. I really do. She looked at me. And I swear this is the moment I'll never forget. Not with guilt, not with shame, with irritation. Fine, she said. Yes, I've been seeing him. For a few months. A few months. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. The world didn't spin. It just narrowed. 12 years, kids upstairs, shared bank accounts, and she delivered it like she was admitting she switched brands of coffee. You were going to find out eventually, she added. That's when the anger hit. Eventually, I said. What was the plan? Leave? Keep both of us? Wait until the kids were older? She sighed. Actually sighed. I didn't plan for this to happen. It just did. Nothing just happens. For months. I asked her if she ever planned to tell me. She said I was figuring things out. I asked if she loved him. She didn't answer that either. Instead, she said something I didn't expect at all. I haven't been happy for a long time. That one hurt more than the cheating. Because if that was true, then the life I thought we were living had been fake long before Brad showed up. We stood there in the driveway. Neighbors' porch lights glowing, kids asleep inside, and I realized I didn't even know the woman in front of me anymore. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just asked one last question. Were you ever going to fight for us? She didn't respond. She just walked inside. I didn't sleep that night. She came to bed around 1 a.m., like nothing happened. No apology, no attempt to talk. Just slid under the covers on her side and turned away from me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the last few months. The gym memberships, the late meetings, the emotional distance, the way she'd started criticizing everything about me, my job, my clothes, even the way I loaded the dishwasher. I kept thinking about what she said. I haven't been happy for a long time. If that was true, why didn't she say something before detonating our marriage? Around 5:30 a.m., I got up, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table in the dark. I expected to feel explosive rage. Instead, I felt hollow, like someone had quietly removed all the air from my life. She came downstairs around 7, dressed for work like it was any other Tuesday. We need to talk, I said. She poured coffee without looking at me. About what? You already know. The casual cruelty of that sentence stunned me. About our kids, I said. About what happens now. That's when something shifted. For the first time, she looked slightly uncomfortable. I'm not leaving the house, she said immediately. I've talked to a lawyer. That stopped me cold. You talked to a lawyer? She shrugged. I've been thinking about this for a while. For a while. So while I was trying to fix us, she was planning an exit. I'm not moving out, she repeated. And I'm not giving up primary custody. You're stable, but you work long hours. The court will look at that. That's when the second punch landed. She wasn't just cheating. She had a strategy. You were going to blindside me with a divorce? I asked. She crossed her arms. I was going to do it cleanly, but you forced this confrontation. I forced it, because I happened to be standing in my own garage. I realized in that moment she didn't see herself as the villain. In her mind, she had outgrown me. I was an obstacle, a stepping stone she'd already mentally left behind. Then she dropped something I truly didn't expect. Brad knows about the kids, she said. He's open to being involved. Being involved. My vision blurred for a second. This man has been around for months, and you think he gets to just step in? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, He makes me feel alive. I can't describe the level of humiliation that sentence carries when it's delivered over coffee at your own kitchen table. But here's the twist she didn't expect. While she was upstairs getting ready to leave for work, I called someone too. Not a friend, not my parents, a lawyer. Turns out, when you've been the steady one paying the majority of the mortgage, covering most of the kids' expenses, and documenting everything for years because you're financially organized, that matters. And here's something else she didn't know. I had already noticed suspicious charges on our joint account weeks ago. Hotel charges during team retreats. Dinner receipts for two when she said she'd eaten with coworkers. I'd screenshotted them. Quietly. Not because I suspected cheating at first, but because something felt off. By 10 a.m., I had legal advice. By noon, I had options. And by that evening, she walked into the house expecting me to crumble. Instead, I handed her printed bank statements and said calmly, "You want to talk about clean? Let's talk about documented." The look on her face was the first crack I'd seen in her armor, and that was the moment she realized something. I wasn't going to beg, I wasn't going to chase, and I definitely wasn't going to roll over. I thought the worst part was over once everything was out in the open. I was wrong. 2 days after the confrontation, Brad stopped being some shadow figure in my driveway and became very real. It started with a knock on the door. I opened it expecting a package. It was him, standing there in a fitted blazer like he was about to pitch a product. "Hey," he said, way too casually. "Is she home?" I stared at him for a solid 5 seconds. "You really think this is appropriate?" He shifted, but not much. "I just want to talk." "About what?" I asked. "My marriage?" He exhaled like I was inconveniencing him. "Look, I didn't know how bad things were between you two." That sentence, that self-righteous tone. "How bad things were," I said. "You mean before or after you started sleeping with my wife?" He flinched slightly at that. "Good. She told me you were basically separated," he said. "Of course she did. She told me you were emotionally checked out," he continued. "That you two were just co-parenting." I almost laughed. We had been planning a summer trip with the kids 3 months ago. We were discussing refinancing options. We were still sleeping in the same bed every night. Checked out. She came down the stairs then, hearing voices. And the second she saw him standing there, her face changed. Not guilt, not panic, relief. "You came," she said softly. That word hit me harder than any insult she'd thrown. I stepped back inside, letting him in. If this was going to happen, it was happening in the open. The kids were at school. Thank God. We stood in the living room, the place we'd opened Christmas presents together, where our daughter learned to walk. And suddenly it felt like a stage for something grotesque. "I didn't want it to be like this," she said, looking at me but angling her body toward him. "What did you want?" I asked. "A smoother transition?" Brad cleared his throat. "We care about each other. We." That was the first time he used that word. "You don't get to we in my house," I said. She bristled. "Stop acting like you own me." "I don't," I replied. "But I thought we had vows." She laughed, actually laughed. "Don't make this about morality," she said. "You haven't exactly been perfect." I froze. What does that mean? She hesitated just long enough to make it sting. "You were never present," she said. "You were safe, predictable, comfortable, but you stopped seeing me." There it was again. The narrative she'd built. Brad stepped closer to her, hand lightly brushing her back like he was already claiming territory. That's when I realized something unexpected. He wasn't some mastermind. He wasn't some irresistible force. He believed her version, the version where I was neglectful, the version where she was trapped, the version where he was rescuing her. And suddenly, I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity, because the woman standing in front of me wasn't just cheating. She was rewriting history to justify it. "Let's be honest," I said calmly. "If you were that unhappy, you could have left. You chose betrayal instead." Her jaw tightened. Brad looked uncomfortable now. Good. Then she said the one thing that made the room go completely silent. I'm staying with him tonight. Not asking, not discussing, declaring. In our house. You're leaving the kids? I asked. They'll be fine, she said. You're here. I studied her face. This wasn't passion. This wasn't love. This was escape. And for the first time since the garage door incident, I felt steady. Go, I said quietly. She blinked. That's it? That's it. Something flickered in her eyes. Maybe surprise. Maybe disappointment that I wasn't fighting harder. She grabbed an overnight bag. He waited by the door, and just like that, she walked out. I stood there in the quiet house, listening to the engine fade down the street. I expected to collapse. Instead, I sat down on the couch and realized something brutal but freeing. She had already left long before that garage door opened. The first night she stayed with him, I didn't text, I didn't call, I didn't ask where she was. That wasn't strength. It was shock. But it looked like strength, and apparently that mattered. The next morning, I got the kids ready for school like nothing had changed, packed lunches, signed permission slips. My son asked where Mom was. Work thing, I said. It tasted like metal in my mouth. Around noon, my phone buzzed. It wasn't her. It was Brad. We need to talk man to man. I stared at that message for a long time. Man to man. I almost ignored it. But something told me this was important. So I replied, "Come by at 6. Kids won't be here." He showed up alone. No blazer this time. No confidence either. He looked unsettled. I didn't know. He started immediately. About the timeline. I stayed quiet. She told me you two hadn't been intimate in over a year. Lie. She said you'd been sleeping in separate rooms. Lie. She said you were emotionally abusive. That one made my chest tighten. Define abusive, I said evenly. She said you belittled her career, controlled finances, made her feel small. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, clarity, because none of that was true. And I had proof of most of it. Shared accounts, joint decisions, texts where I encouraged her promotions, emails where I celebrated her wins. You've been in my house, I said calmly. Have I seemed unstable to you? He hesitated. No. Have you seen fear in her? Another pause. No. Have I threatened you, followed you, caused a scene? He shook his head. I leaned back. Then maybe the version of me she sold you isn't accurate. For the first time, doubt fully registered on his face. She said she tried to leave before, he said quietly. That you manipulated her into staying. I almost laughed again, but it came out tired. She's the one who talked to a lawyer before I even knew about you, I said. That hit him. Hard. You're lying, he said reflexively. But it didn't sound confident. I have the paperwork, I replied. Silence stretched between us. Then I said something I didn't expect to say. She told you she was trapped. She told me she was unfulfilled. Those aren't the same thing. He swallowed. I could see it now. The cracks. This wasn't some epic love story. This was her rewriting history to justify a rush of validation. You're not the villain in this story, I said quietly. But you're not the hero either. He ran a hand through his hair. She said she loved me. There it was. I held his gaze. Maybe she does, but she didn't leave cleanly. She burned everything on the way out. He didn't argue. And then came the unexpected turn. She's been pushing to move in, he admitted. Fast, like really fast. Of course she had. She told me you were going to make custody ugly, that I'd need to step up as a father figure immediately. That made my stomach drop. This wasn't just an affair. Genuinely shaken now. I don't want to genuinely shaken now. I don't want to hurt the kids, he said quietly. Neither did I. That was the difference. He left looking nothing like the confident guy who'd stood in my driveway. And here's the twist I didn't expect. 2 days later, she came home furious. "Why did you talk to him?" she demanded. "Because he asked," I said. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing that wasn't true." Her face went pale. "What did you show him?" So that was it. She was afraid of evidence. "Relax," I said calmly. "I didn't need to show him anything." That scared her more, because now she didn't know what he believed. And for the first time since the garage door opened, she looked uncertain. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was subtle at first. Brad stopped coming around. Not dramatically. Not with some grand breakup speech. He just slowed down. Fewer visits. Fewer late-night pickups. The overnight stays became, "I'm busy this week." And I could see it getting to her. She tried to pretend nothing had changed, but the energy was different. She was restless in the house. On her phone more, snapping at the kids over small things. One evening, about 2 weeks after she'd first stayed with him, she came home earlier than usual. Alone. She didn't look triumphant. She looked unsettled. "Did you say something to him?" she asked. I was at the kitchen table helping our daughter with math homework. "About what?" I asked calmly. "About me. About us." I answered his questions, I said. "That's all." She stared at me like she was trying to decode something. "He thinks I rushed things," she muttered. "He said maybe we should slow down." There it was. Not, "We're in love." Not, "He's choosing me." Slow down. I kept my voice neutral. "That sounds reasonable." Her eyes flashed. "Don't act superior." "I'm not," I said. "I'm just not competing." That hit her harder than if I'd yelled. Because here's the part no one prepares you for. When you stop chasing, the dynamic changes. For weeks she'd expected me to beg, to plead, to fight for her attention like she was the prize in some twisted contest. But I'd shifted focus to the kids, to documentation, to therapy for myself, to the quiet rebuilding of my own stability. And that stability unsettled her. A few days later, the kids had a school event. We both showed up. Brad didn't. Parents milled around, talking. A few of them gave me sympathetic looks. Word travels fast in suburban neighborhoods. She stood beside me awkwardly while our son presented his science project. And for the first time, I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen before. Isolation. "Have you?" "No," I said. "I don't need have you." "No," I said. "I don't need to." That silence again. That was the real consequence. Not lawyers, not bank statements, not custody discussions, reputation, reality. She had framed herself as the woman who finally chose happiness. But the community saw something simpler. She left her husband for a co-worker and tried to fast-track him into her kids' lives. And Brad? He wasn't signing up for public villain status. The breaking point came one Sunday afternoon. She was sitting on the couch, staring at her phone. Then she said, barely audible, "He needs space." I didn't respond. He says this got messy faster than he expected. Messy. 12 years reduced to messy. She looked up at me then, and there it was. Not defiance, not superiority. Doubt. "What if I made a mistake?" she asked. And that was the moment I'd imagined 100 times in my head. A series of choices. She flinched. I was a series of choices. She flinched. I was unhappy, she said again. But this time it sounded less certain. "I believe you," I replied. But cheating wasn't therapy. It was escape. Tears welled up in her eyes. Not loud sobbing. Just quiet panic. "He was supposed to be sure," she whispered. That's when it clicked fully for me. She hadn't left because she was in love. She left because she wanted certainty, validation, excitement, a guaranteed landing spot. And now that landing spot was shaky. She looked at me like I might offer rescue, like I might say, "Come back, let's fix this." But something inside me had settled. "I won't compete," I said gently, "and I won't be your backup plan." That's when she started crying for real. Because for the first time since this began, She realized something irreversible. I wasn't the safe constant anymore. I was moving forward. It happened 3 weeks after Brad needed space. She came home early again. No overnight bag, no defensive posture, just quiet. The kids were upstairs. I was in the kitchen cleaning up dinner. "I ended it," she said, just like that. No drama, no build-up. I kept drying the plate in my hands. "Okay," I replied. She blinked. "That's it?" "That's it." Her face tightened. "Don't you want to know why?" I set the towel down slowly. "Does it change what happened?" Silence. "He wasn't ready for something serious," she said. "He said he didn't sign up to be stepdad overnight." There it was. Not I realized I love you. Not I made a horrible mistake. He wasn't ready. "So what now?" I asked calmly. She stepped closer. "We can fix this." That word again. Fix. "You don't just trip and fall into months of lies," I said. "You built something behind my back." She reached for my arm. I stepped back. "I was confused," she insisted. "I felt invisible." "I was right here," I replied quietly. "You chose him, publicly, strategically." "You chose him, publicly, strategically." She started crying harder. "I blew up my life," she whispered. And for a split second, I saw the woman I married. The one who used to laugh in our kitchen. The one who held my hand in hospital rooms when our kids were born. But I also saw the woman who stood in our driveway and told me she was staying with him. Both were real. "I can forgive a lot," I said carefully. "But I can't unknow what you were willing to risk." She sank into a chair. "I thought you'd fight for me," she admitted. That stopped me. "I did," I said. "For months. You just didn't notice because I wasn't dramatic about it." That silence again. Heavy. Honest. "I don't want to lose our family," she said. "You already changed it," I replied. She looked at me like she was searching for some sign I'd soften. "I'll go to therapy. I'll quit my job. I'll do whatever it takes." That desperation. It wasn't about love. It was about losing control. Because for the first time, she didn't know what I was going to do. And here's the truth no one tells you in moments like that. Reconciliation sounds powerful when you're hurt. But clarity feels stronger. "I'm not your second option," I said calmly. "And I won't build a marriage on fear of being alone." She stared at me. "So you're just done?" That word hit differently than divorce ever had. Done. I thought about the garage door, the lies, the lawyer she'd already contacted before I even knew, the way she rewrote our history to make herself feel justified. And I realized something simple. Trust isn't just about sex. It's about loyalty when no one's watching. "I'm not angry anymore," I said quietly. "That's how I know." That broke her. Because anger can be negotiated. Anger can be soothed. Anger still cares. Calm doesn't. She left the room in tears. I stayed at the kitchen table long after the house went quiet. It's been 6 months. The divorce is almost finalized. We tried 2 joint therapy sessions, not because I thought it would save us, but because I needed to know I had explored every option before I walked away for good. In therapy, she cried. She talked about feeling unseen, about turning 38 and panicking that life had become predictable, about mistaking attention for connection. The therapist asked her a simple question. "Did you communicate your unhappiness clearly before starting the affair?" She couldn't answer. Because the truth is, she didn't. She built resentment silently. She sought validation externally. And when she found it, she rewrote our story to justify keeping it. That was the hardest part for me. Not the physical betrayal. It was the narrative betrayal. Being turned into the villain in a story I didn't know we were writing. In the end, I chose divorce. Not out of revenge, not out of pride, but because something fundamental had shifted inside me. When trust cracks that deeply, you don't just glue it back together. You stare at it every day, wondering when it will split again. The kids know we're separating. We kept it simple. Mom and Dad both love you. We just can't live in the same house anymore. They've adjusted better than I expected. Kids are resilient when at least one parent stays steady. As for Brad, he transferred to a different branch within 2 months. That once-in-a-lifetime connection apparently had an expiration date once it came with custody schedules and social consequences. She's still at the same company. From what I've heard, she keeps to herself more now. And here's the part that surprised me most. I don't hate her. I don't wake up angry anymore. What I feel is clarity. I've learned that cheating rarely starts in the bedroom. It starts in small decisions. Choosing validation over communication. Choosing secrecy over discomfort. Choosing ego over partnership. And I've learned something about myself too. I thought love meant endurance. I thought being the stable one meant absorbing everything quietly. But stability without boundaries turns into self-erasure. If you're reading this because you're standing in your own version of that garage, here's what I'll say. Don't beg for someone who already left in their mind. Don't compete with fantasy, and don't accept being someone's safety net when their thrill fades. You can be calm and still be strong. You can be steady and still walk away. The garage door eventually got fixed. It closes smoothly now, and every time I hit that button and watch it seal shut, I think about that night. The headlights, the laughter, the mask snapping into place. That was the night I lost a marriage. But it was also the night I stopped losing myself.